friends, this is Hannah, and I am here with the second half of the scrap bin series that I am doing. This is the second episode that I have, and this is going to go with the video that should be right before this, where I pick out the papers. I did them in separate videos just so that if you didn't care to see me pick out my papers, you could just watch me do the process of creating the layout. But if you wanted to have an idea of what was in my head while I was picking out the papers, you're more than welcome to watch that video. I'll make sure I link it below. And this is just a series in which I am taking a dive into my scrap bin bucket pile and picking out papers that kind of go together to make a layout. I know sometimes we're intimidated when we see this pile of papers and we're not sure how we can get all of these used up because we want to use them up so we can buy more papers, right? I mean, I know I do. I have so many papers that I need to just use. I mean, I should be doing this series a little bit more consistently, and hopefully now that things are sort of slowing down and I'm getting in more of a routine of things, I will be able to get more of these. So basically what I'm doing right now, I just laid down some gelatos over top of a piece of cardstock that had gesso. I am doing dots because if you remember from my other video, and if you didn't watch it, I was kind of inspired by dots this week. So I am trying to make pretty good sized dots, and my thought process while I was doing this was that I didn't want them to be perfect, and I kind of wanted the water to like seep out of the outside of the dot so it looked a little bit more artsy or not so rigid. I don't know. That's not really the word that I'm looking for. But I didn't want it to look like I just made a circle and just colored it in. So what you're seeing is me trying to accomplish that. I used quite a bit of water. I let it sit overnight. And I came back to it and I still didn't like it. So this is the second day. And so I'm trying to add a little bit more water and push the gelatos. The great thing about gelatos on gesso is that they move really, really well. Even after sitting overnight, they still, with a little bit of work and some water, you can get them to start moving around again. And quite a bit of the gelato comes off onto the paintbrush when you do it this way. And I really, after a while, pushing it around and really getting that thick layer that was starting to hard on after sitting, it really did start coming off. And I really just made sure I pushed it off of where I originally made that first circle. So it kind of worked out better that I let it sit and then went back, because it looks a little bit less uniform than it did before. And that's really what I was going. So these are the papers that I picked out, and you're going to see me look through and figure out which ones actually are going to end up on my layout. Now, I did this pretty much all in like 2 or 3 day span. Usually when I try to do a layout and when I'm picking out papers to constructing a whole layout, I try to do it as together as I can. I mean, that doesn't always work. Sometimes you only have 15 or 20 minutes at a time to scrap or to do something, but I try to get when I pick my papers to forming a layout, get most of it done in a relatively short amount of time, as far as like 24 hours. I try not to go over 2 or 3 days because otherwise my original concept for a layout usually changes, and that's not a problem. And you know, sometimes I can't do that. Sometimes I have to let a layout sit, and that's just life, right? But usually if I can, that's just how I like to scrap. That's how I prefer to scrap, to just get it done. And so what that has meant for me is to try to come up with ways to scrap in a shorter amount of time. So, I really do try to think about having an idea in my head before I come to my scrap table. I usually will scrap at night, so during the day I will think about like ways that I can make a layout better, or ways how I want to construct the layout. I mean, sometimes when you get there, you start moving papers around, and that that Maggie Holmes paper with the I love yous on it, I love the way that that looked across in between the the two areas of the dots. So that kind of was my thought process as I got going on here, because I actually had no idea. Like, I was thinking about what I wanted to do, but really until I sat down is when it kind of looked right to me. And I really had wanted to use that dark grain paper that you see off to the side, and I just couldn't find a way to make it work and not make it look forced. And sometimes I have to let go of a paper that I really want to use, because I really wanted to use it. It would have looked gorgeous with those hot pinks and that yellow striped paper, because those were the original papers that I had seen that had made me switch over from using dots to a whole different color scheme. And I really liked the way that, I'm not sure if that's crepe paper, the craft market, or if that's Maggie Holmes, the confetti line, but that green, the dots with the mint, and then they have black, like almost like pen mark dots. I really liked the way that that looked perpendicular from that long Maggie Holmes paper. And I liked the way the hot pink kind of came out from behind, and it really bridges the gap from the one side of the dots to the other side of the dots. And I mean, I know I haven't been scrapping for a super long time, and so I know not as much of how the design rules and principles, and I didn't study this kind of stuff in school. So I went to school for culinary arts. So as far as like art techniques and stuff, I'm not the most knowledgeable, but I know what looks good to my eye. And by watching a lot of great designers and listening to a lot of great designers, and using sketches, I've learned what just kind of looks good. And sometimes you just got to play around with your papers and flip them around and see how they look. I really wanted to add that tag, and I just couldn't find a way. I thought it looked really silly on the other side of that photo of me and my family at the zoo. I think I may have scrapped this another time, and I might actually have a video for it, so if I can find it, I'll link it below. But and here I go. I had those cameras from, I don't know if you remember from the other video. There was a strip of paper with a whole bunch of different cameras, and I cut out the ones that I thought would look and work with the color schemes that I was looking at. And so I picked the hot pink one, the yellow one, and that like more darker pink. But I only end up using one. I just couldn't, I wanted to stick with that concept of threes, or having, like 3 areas, but I just didn't know where I wanted those to be. And I wasn't sure if I wanted it to be up, but I felt like it being up there. Like, I put it here, but I didn't like it because it was so far away. It's like so disconnected from the rest of the layout. I felt like there's not, how am I going to get that camera to bridge the gap? I mean, they don't have to be touching, but I feel like for a cluster to, it either needs to be completely separate or it needs to have this gap. But because of those dots, it makes it feel like it's supposed to be connected, but it's just floating there. And I didn't like the way that that looks. So I kept it there. And I really like the way that that camera looks there on that side. So for now, I'm leaving the cameras there, and I'm going to kind of play around with some other things that I have. I took this washi tape from Amy Tangerine. She has those booklets that have the washi tape. And I had a couple of pages, and so I'm also looking through some old Maggie Holmes ephemera pieces. I don't have many because I've used them up because I love both the style board ephemera and the ephemera from the original Maggie Holmes. They're like my favorite collections as far as like especially ephemera pieces. They're just so much fun. So here I'm moving it around again, and I'm still not sure how I like it. I found that arrow and I really like that. I will apologize if I am super, super nasal, but guys, I have been like so sick this week. Oh my gosh. So that's why you haven't seen me. I've had this video ready to go since last weekend, and it just wasn't going to work. Just now I'm starting to feel like I don't sound horrible and I'm not feeling horrible, so just bear with the cold a little while longer. It sucks when you're in when it's in the summertime. Well, it feels like fall time now because the kids are back in school, but that's a whole nother story. So I found that Enjoying the Ride banner tag from the I Am collection, and I really like that. So I'm going to put that down at the bottom, and I really like having the cluster at the bottom, at the top, and over on the side of the photo. I really like that. So I took the other camera off. I took the cameras off because I just thought that I just didn't like it. So I'm still thinking about, oh, maybe I could put something in that space because I have all that space, and as beautiful as that I Love You paper is, I felt like something else needed to go there. So I'm going to kind of look for some embellishments maybe to go in that other cluster and kind of see what else I can build. I had that other camera from the Simple Stories Summer Vibes collection, and that's a really fun collection. And it's kind of vintagey, so it kind of works with the Maggie Holmes paper and stuff. I usually don't go for that much vintage stuff anymore. When I first started scrapping, I used a lot of vintage stuff. I think that was more of the style, and now it's becoming a little bit more clean. And so I've found that I bought that collection and I love some of the pieces, but because they're so vintagey that I've had a hard time using them on clean layouts. So this is the perfect layout to use some of those pieces. That piece, so I really like it up in that corner with that pinked circle from My Mind's Eye, and that triangle was also from My Mind's Eye, so it kind of helped take collections that worked together already in colors that I had. Though that mint color was also in the other, that crepe paper, so it just kind of helps bring those colors around. So you got the mint teal colors in each of the sections. I mean, and you don't have to do it that way. But I find that if you have a cluster, each cluster, if it has a color or a pattern or even like a heart or something or a flower in each one, that it kind of helps connect them so your eye goes around the photo. Because that's really, you want your eye to go around the whole layout. You want your eye to see everything that you did on the layout. Because, I mean, if you're not going to look at it after it's done, then why did you put that on there? So, I mean, and it can just be to have fun. Like, that is totally cool, but you want your eye to find it. You don't want it to be lost in the abyss of your layout. As beautiful as that cluster could be, if it doesn't connect with the other parts of the layout, then your eye's not going to go right to it. So I put hot dots underneath that because I have quite a bit of layers, and I wanted it to pop up just a little bit so that you can see some of the shadows. And I'm going to put that poolside flower cluster in there in a minute. And I also used a vellum Maggie. I think it's from Maggie Holmes. It's just the date, like vellum squares. I thought that would be a good place to put the date. So, yeah, I think I put some pop dots underneath that. Yeah, I did. I wanted there to be dimension over there just because that is a pretty good sized cluster now. Which, and at the beginning, I wasn't sure what I was going to put over there. So I was happy to start finding things that kind of worked. And sometimes you just have to look around your stash. And I think this is why it's important not to buy so much that you don't remember what's in your stash, so that when you're making a layout, you can say, oh yeah, I remember I have this piece that I can use. Because if you have so much that you don't remember, it is hard to find things that work together, even though you probably already do. I know there's a few scrappers like Nick Macon and Kitty Scrapper, where they like to make kits out of their own stash. And I think this is something great that like maybe we all should do, just because sometimes working from a kit just helps, so that we're not spending so much time when we don't have that much time to scrap. I know I'm lucky where almost every night, if I wanted to, I can scrap. But there's a lot of times where I'm tired and I just don't have the time to do it. So it's nice to be able to have something put together so that if I have little chunks of time, I can work on something. I love these gold stickers from Pink Fresh Studio. They're super, super fun, and they have tons of like summery stuff. And the one that I picked was Places to Go, and I picked it because I have some other gold accents on, and even though it's not exactly the same color gold, it still links all the gold together. And as you've seen, I had put some sequins because I almost can't have a layout without sequins. And I'm gonna spell zoo time with, I use some, let's see, I use some of those green ombre, and those are from Glitz Designs. They're from the Finley collection, and I really love the green. It kind of works to bring just a little bit more green in. And those stickers, I know I didn't have a E, so I had to make an E out of it, an F and an L. So I just put the F on top of the L, and hopefully if you're just flipping through my album, you won't notice that there's the dimension, but I thought that worked pretty well. And I'm just going to add some enamel dots, and I added some Chamel buttons too. So I think I'm almost done. I don't do any splatters on here just because I have the dots already. I just felt like that would be a little too much just for me. And with the enamel dots, I made sure I put them in this. I tried to get one in the circle of the same color. So I have like a pinky peach color in the coral color dot. I had a green and like the teal one, and I had like a lighter pink in one of the lighter pink ones. So, and I'm going to journal on the outside, and this is going to help bring everything in on my layout so that I don't have to like draw lines. I could have totally did that. That would have worked. But sometimes I just like to mix it up and add the journaling just like around the outside. It makes it fun. You can read it. I mean, it'll be a little bit harder to read when it's in the page protector, but it's just fun because you can read it if you want. If you don't want to take the time to read it, then you don't have to. So I just think it's a little fun way to add journaling sometimes. And then it works a little bit better into the design than to just have this block of letters that go wonky, because I always do wonky letters. So I hope you guys enjoyed this layout, and I hope you guys are enjoying this series. I am gonna try to get another one of these layouts out for you guys next week so that I can continue using my stash, because I want to get the new Amy Tan stuff that's coming out soon. So I will see you guys later, and I hope you have a great weekend. Bye.